Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. I am, of course, Reader Lazarus. I hope you've all had a very wonderful day. Uh, where is today's saints in the group chat? Anyway, we've got 4 entries in the group chat. No, 5 entries in the group chat, 4 in the book. No, 4 in both the book, and I think it's 4 on this Celtic Saints website as well. Our first entry for today is Saint Dubricius, also known as Dubric or Dyfrig, and he is from the 6th century. His icon is depicted on the left, and I had to zoom in order to make it take up a respectable part of the screen. Anyway, our father among the saints, Dubricius, was a Welsh holy man, founder of monasteries in Hentland and Mochas, in present-day Herefordshire, and the subject of a myriad of legends over the years. Geoffrey of Monmouth, in his Historia Regum Britanniae, 1136, wrote that St. Dubricius was Archbishop of Carlion and Wales and crowned King Arthur, which Alfred, Lord Tennyson, later incorporated into his works, Idylls of the King. Bishop Urban of Llandaff, 1134, claimed that St. Dubricius had been consecrated Archbishop of the whole of southern Britain by Saints Germanus of Auxerre, 31st of July, and Lupus of Troia, 29th of July, establishing his see at Llandaff. Even though Germanus reposed approximately 25 years before St. Dubricius was born, in addition, 20th century Arthurian scholar Dr. Norman Laura Goodrich claims that St. Dubricius and Merlin were the same person. Legends notwithstanding, there is no question that in the early Middle Ages, St. Dubricius was held in great esteem throughout the southeast Wales for his wisdom and learning. The first mention of Dubricius is in a manuscript of the Annales Cambriae, British Library, ms. Harlian? 3859, folios 190, lowercase Romeo, then a line thing, 193, lowercase Romeo. R is Romeo in the, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, etc. alphabet, which is believed to date from the second half of the 9th century. And also that the British Library, up until that 913R thing, is in brackets. Anyway, in this manuscript, there is a reference under the year 612. Configiani obitus et Dyfrig episcopate. And then it says, death of Kentigern, who is commemorated, by the way, on the 13th of January, and of Bishop Dyfrig. However, with the exception of one version of the text, this date is not agreement with other hagiographies of St. Dubricius. Questionable reliability aside, which indicates he flourished in the late 5th or early 6th century. Therefore, the phrase et Dyfrig episcopi is believed by some scholars to be a later addition to St. Kentigern Mungo's obituary. Whilst there are cursory mentions of St. Dubricius in the Vita Sancti Samsonis, now believed to have been composed in 750, and 11th century scholar Rigfarch ap Sullian's Vita Sancti Davidis, brackets 1090. The earliest and the most informative life is the Vita Sancti Dubricius in Bishop Urban's ancient register of the Cathedral Church of Llandaff, more commonly known as the Book of Llandaff. Early 12th century. That's in brackets, by the way. However, this was primarily written to provide an indisputable early history for the See of Llandaff, to support Bishop Urban's claims as he expanded his see. The majority of the book is unreservedly ecclesiastical propaganda, and the biased motivation for writing the Vita would ordinarily call into question the veracity of the work. However, detailed examination suggests that it may contain some accurate traditions relating to Saint Dubricius. Therefore are a number of other 12th century lives in which Saint Dubricius makes brief appearances as well. 12th century Benedictine monk and hagiographer Benedict of Gloucester's Vita, brackets, now preserved at the British Library, Cotton MS Vespasian A.xiv, close brackets, drew heavily from the Book of Clontarf, though he did incorporate some materials from these other works. I do want to quickly put the put this on the board for those lol. For those that want to read the thingy entry, because we've still got like basically another page in a bit. That it'll be in here to make my life a little bit easier. According to the various Vitas, Saint Dubricius was the possibly illegitimate son of Efrddyl, daughter of King Pabo Calafrog, Latin Pepianus Spumosus, of Ergyng. The kingdom of Ergyng, later known in English as Archenfield, is thought to have been centred on what had been the Roman vicus of Ariconium, present-day Western under Penyard in Herefordshire, England. According to one legend, Pabo suffered from leprosy and foaming at the mouth, and while still an infant, Saint Dubricius kissed and touched his grandfather on the face and mouth, curing him of his affliction. When he was older, Saint Dubricius was sent to an unnamed monastery/seminary, where he was a preeminent student and later teacher, especially in the area of modern and ancient law. In time, he founded the monastery at Hentland, about 8 kilometres 5 miles northwest of present-day Ross-on-Wye, in Herefordshire. The monastery is reputed to have attracted upwards of 200 monks, including Saints Theo, 9th of February, Kingsmark, 8th of September, and Samson, 28th of July, whom Saint Dubricius consecrated bishop. Though there is no longer any trace of it, the monastery most likely was situated in the field just to the south of the present Church of England parish of Church of Dubricius, which to this day is a place of pilgrimage. After 7 years, he went to Moccas, 23 kilometres 14 miles west of Herefordshire, where the parish of Church of St. Michael now stands. In later life, Dubricius retired to Bardsey Island, YNYS space ENLLI, off the Clanin Peninsula, Gwynedd, where it is thought he reposed. This practice of his life is striking in its absence of anything that associates Saint Dubricius with Clontarf. This book does give a lot of, here's what the scholars say. Anyway, Saint Dubricius, the Saint Dubricius presented in the 7th century Vita Sancti Samsonis is rather unlike the Saint Dubricius of the Book of Clontarf. There are frequent mentions of Papa Dubricius visiting Iltudes, who commemorated back on the 6th of November, Great Monastery and School at Llaniltud Fawr, which is Llantwit Major, in the Vale of Glamorgan, Wales, where he consecrated Saint Samson, who commemorated back on the 20th of July, as well as spending time in prayer and meditation. Secluded at his house on YNYS space BY with like a hat accent on top of it, R, which translates to Cowdy Island, off the South Pembrokeshire coast. The mention of Saint Dubricius in the Annales Cumbriae, questions aside, clearly demonstrates that by mid-10th century, Saint Dubricius was regarded as a saint of consequence in South Wales. At this time, the notion of Saint Dubricius as a visiting bishop came to be more widely held, and according to the Vita Sancti Gundlei, it was in this role he consecrated Saint Leonorius, who is apparently commemorated 1st of July, at Llantwit Major. In his Vita Sancti Davidis, Regifarch writes that it was Saint Dubricius the senior bishop in attendance, that's parts in brackets by the way, joined by Saint Daniel, who we commemorated back on the 11th of September, who ultimately convinced Saint David, who we commemorated back on the 1st of March, to attend the Synod of Brethi, c.545, which had been called to condemn Pelagianism. This is another indication of the developing importance of St. Dubricius in southeastern Wales. The commonly accepted date of St. Dubricius's repose is c.545, though according to some sources this may have been as early as 465 and as late as 1612. He was initially buried on Bardsey Island, and according to the Book of Llandaff, his relics were translated to Llandaff Cathedral in 1120. There are churches dedicated to him in Bellingham and Herefordshire, Church of England, Llanfaches and Newport, Church in Wales, brackets, and in that part, the Church in Wales parts in brackets, and in Treforest, which is Roman Catholic. The group chat entry is St. Dubricius, bracket Dyfrig and Dyfrig, Bishop in Hereford and Gwent, Hermit of Bardsey Island, bracket c.550 AD. One of the founders of monastic life in Wales, his monastic centres were at Hanclan and Marcus. However, he founded many other monasteries in Gwent and in England, in what is now Herefordshire and the Wye Valley. He had jurisdiction over Cowdy Island, where he appointed St. Samson abbot and later consecrated him bishop. A late tradition makes him Archbishop of Caerleon. He reposed on the Isle of Bardsey. He does have a Troparion, which is sung in the first tone. Thou art worthily honoured as the Father of Welsh Monasticism, O Hierarch Dybricius, labouring to establish true asceticism with thy brother in the faith, Samson of Dol, whom thou didst raise to the dignity of the episcopate. In thy pastoral love, O saint, pray for us that despite our unspiritual lives, Christ our God will grant us great mercy. Is the next entry Modin? Wait. It's probably Modin. Here's the entry here. The next entry is for Modanic, who, date is unknown. According to this site, it's also Modin. The only reliable information available on the life of Saint Modanic states that he was a Scottish bishop traditionally venerated in Aberdeen. So, today there are only 2 entries in the book, but there are two more entries in both the thingy and the group chat, so I will bring those up. Saint Modanic, a bishop in Scotland, bracket 8th century. He was an avid scholar and reformer. So date is unknown, but we do concede that it is possibly the 8th century that he is from. Okay, the next entry for today is Saint Sidonius, also known as Sains or Saidna, of St. Sains. Born in Ireland, he was a monk at John Mage's Abbey, later the first abbot of St. Sain, bracket c.690 AD. Okay, wait, oh, right, we got more notice, right, so, I will just quickly acknowledge that in here the actual 4th entry is St. Constant of Low, and then that is different from the 4th entry in the group chat, which is St. Malo of Brittany, bracket 7th century. Born in Wales, he was one of the 7 founding saints of Brittany. As a monk at Llancarfan Abbey in Wales, Malo was known for his participation in the voyage of St. Brendan the Navigator to the Island of the Blessed. St. Malo became Brendan's favourite disciple. Brendan and Malo are said to have visited and evangelized locations including Shejembra, the Orkney Islands, and the Northern Isles of Scotland. At Aileth in Brittany, St. Malo served under a venerable hermit named Aaron. Upon Aaron's death in 544, Malo continued the spiritual rule of this district, subsequently known as St. Malo, and was consecrated as the first bishop of Aleph. I feel like he's came up before, but anyway, may those saints intercede for us before the righteous judge. I will make sure that the Troparion is in the description for you all. God bless you all. See you all tomorrow. God bless you all, and Amen.